Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are taking our very first look at the new Tier 6 Italian battleship, the BA, the Blue Archive, Binah. Now this is a Caracciolo, as you can see by their silhouettes down there in the bottom. It is literally the same ship, except it's got a couple of differences. So let's get into it. First of all, we're running Angelo Iacchino. We've got Azure Lane Scharnhorst and Andrew Cunningham as our inspirations. Now, I want to give a caveat. Down the road, Scharnhorst is irrelevant at this point, for battleships anyway, because a battleship commander has just been brought in that replaces her for battleships. Now, the good thing about Scharnhorst is she's capable of being used on all the classes. But as you probably have noticed by now, that anytime that you can get a specific class commander, you get a bigger bonus. So while Scharnhorst can get up to, I believe, a 4% bonus to main battery dispersion, currently I'm at 3.8, the new commander, let me find her real quick, she is the Blue Archive Kunuri Maki. I apologize if I say that incorrectly. But this commander is basically Scharnhorst for battleships specifically. This gives you a better battleship main battery dispersion, and as you can see, it goes up to 5% instead of 4%. It's not a huge difference, but it does make a difference when you're doing a specific build. And more than that, that means you can throw this and Scharnhorst on things if you prefer to get better accuracy overall. Now, I want to point out that this is dispersion, not grouping. What is the difference? There is a difference, and that is that dispersion is the overall ellipse that the shell can land in, right? That is, so you shrink that down, your shots technically become more accurate, okay? Grouping is when your shells are, like the affinity for your shells to stay closer to one another. Doesn't mean that they're more accurate, it just means that when you do hit, you tend to hit more shells, okay? So that's why I tend to go for grouping a lot more than dispersion, personally. However, there are some cases where dispersion is a big deal, and the Italians are one of them, trying to get these guns to be more accurate. Now, I will say this, while I haven't enjoyed my time in the ship, it's not the ship's fault. It's more the fact that it's a Tier 6, and we'll go over that in a minute. But anyway, we are running Iacchino. We have, obviously, Scharnhorst Cunningham as our inspirations. We have Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Drill Bits, Marksmanship, and Reaching Out XXL. And we are running Testudo as well. Now, you could run Iron Resolve here as well, which gives you a little bit better duration of your repair party and damage control. But honestly, having extra range comes in clutch, especially in a ship like Tier 6, where you want to keep your distance whenever possible, but if you have to brawl, you can. Now, aiming system mods 1, we've got steering gears mod 2, and we have concealment system module. Okay. For the loadout, we are running 5 repair parties because of the Testudo skill. We have main battery reload booster. Now, this cuts the reload time in half, but you got to remember, this thing has a 33-second reload, which is awful. But the reason for that is because it has SAP primary guns. So you can run AP and SAP. Now, why is this important? Well, you'll see in the video that the SAP comes in absolutely clutch in a lot of scenarios where the AP would not be all that effective. It can be, sure. But if you've got SAP available, the SAP is going to be more effective in certain situations than the AP, and we'll try to go over that when we get to it. But because of the long reload, your reload booster is literally only for a couple of scenarios. One, to get your guns back in half the time, obviously. But also, if you need to try to beat somebody's reload, you can do so. And we're going to show that off in the video coming up as well. All right, so we are running the Italian Unity flag because if you squint just right, kind of looks like a Spartan helmet, and we're running the Blue Archive Binah camo that comes with the ship. Specs, survivability, 50,500 hit points. Feels kind of low, but it is a Tier 6 ship, so I don't know what the average for Tier 6 battleships is. I haven't paid that much attention. But 25% torque production for the tier is pretty good. Artillery, 381 millimeter 50 caliber auto 1934s. You get 8 of those, reaching out to 18.5 kilometers with this build, reloading in, like I said, 33 seconds. That's awful for 15-inch guns, especially 15-inch dual turrets. Like, that is terrible. I cannot tell you just how bad that is. To put that into perspective, that is Florida levels of reload when Florida has twice the guns. Does that make sense? It's not ideal. Okay, Florida doesn't quite have twice the guns. It only has, 12 guns? So, yeah, you get 50% more guns for the same reload. Yeah, not ideal. 180-degree turn time for a Battleship, pretty good, 25 seconds, so no complaints there. AP shell maximum damage, pretty solid, 11,880, pretty much normal for a 15-inch gun. SAP shells, though, 11,800. Pretty nasty SAP. I will say that, especially for the tier, the SAP is going to pin a lot of stuff, and it is going to hurt people. And we'll go over that. You'll be surprised at what this SAP can do. Secondary armament, 90 millimeter 50 caliber auto 1939s. You get 12 of those, reaching out to 4.7 kilometers, reloading in 4 seconds. HE shell maximum damage 1,300 and a 5% chance to set fires. And of course, you've got the 152 millimeter 55 caliber auto 1936s. You get 12 of those, reaching out to 4.7 kilometers, reloading in 8 seconds, and doing HE maximum damage of 2,100 and a 7% chance to set fires. So not the best secondaries in the world. And because these are firing as HE instead of SAP secondaries, honestly, there's no reason to ever build into the secondaries on this thing. They're decent for what they are, and you will see them coming in to their own in this fight that you're going to see. But yeah, overall, it's not something you really want to build into. AA defense, not particularly great, but it will shoot down some stuff. And that's mainly because the bulk of its AA is actually longer range, or at least mid-range. We'll call it mid-range AA. 20 millimeter 65 caliber Beretta 1935s, you get 4 of those, doing 7 damage per second, reaching out to 2 kilometers. Basically, it doesn't exist. Then the 20 millimeter 70 caliber Beretta 1941s, you get 48 of those, doing 50 damage per second, reaching out to just 2 kilometers. Again, basically non-existent. 37 millimeter 54 caliber Beretta 1938. You get 16 of those, doing 93 damage per second, reaching out to 3.5 kilometers. And then, of course, the bulk of your AA is a little bit of a mid-range standoff, kind of 90 millimeter 50 caliber auto 1939. You get 12 of those, doing 114 damage per second, reaching out to 4 kilometers. So again, it's not the worst AA I've ever had, but it's not great. Okay. And the good news is, like I said, the majority of your AA is at least, reaching out a little bit from your ship. Does it matter? No, not really. Maneuverability. Maximum speed, 27 knots with a 740 meter turning circle. That's the big key for this thing. It turns really well. And with the steering gears, you got a 12.1 second rudder shift, meaning this thing is very capable of unleashing a broadside and getting itself angled again before you get caught. Now, that being said, we'll get into why that's not necessarily working. Detectability by sea is 12.9. Detectability by air is 10.8. Guaranteed is always 2, and the smoke firing penalty is 10.3. So a fantastic smoke firing penalty for a battleship, as you'd expect out of Italians. But you don't get any smoke, so it doesn't really matter. All right, stats. Don't let the win rate fool you. I've not really had a bad game. Despite dying quickly, more than I like to admit to, the ship has performed pretty well. It's just squishy as a Tier 6 battleship. Like, there's no way to not be a squishy Tier 6 battleship, I don't think. Every Tier 6 battleship is squishy. It's just the way they are. You're overmatched by 15-inch guns and above in pretty much every Tier 6 battleship. Yes, you get extended belts, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really help because you're getting plunging fire a lot, so it just overmatches most of your armor and just tears you to shreds. And God forbid you go broadside in this thing and get caught, because you will die. Okay, just like every other Italian battleship. But overall, you can see the main gun accuracy has been fantastic, which is a stark contrast to my usual experience with Italian battleships. The accuracy of this thing seems pretty good. Again, I don't have the stats on the specifics of the accuracy, but it feels way more accurate than I remember the Caracciolo being. Just saying. Okay? But yeah, let's get into the armor. So as expected, it is a 25 millimeter bow. That's that nice little. All right, okay, it's 26 millimeters. It doesn't matter. It's still overmatchable by 15-inch guns and above. And why that is a bad thing is because pretty much everything at Tier 7 and Tier 6 has 16 or 15 and 16-inch guns that are going to be shooting at you, meaning that pretty much anywhere that these shells hit, they're going to overmatch, which means they are going to pin and they're going to do damage. If they're plunging fire through the deck, if you know, it doesn't matter. It's going to tear you up. You do have the extended belt, as you'd expect, going all the way to the bow, which is nice. Keeps you from being overmatched if somebody's dumb enough to shoot the water line. But let's be fair, there's still quite a bit of green up there in the front. So if a shell goes through the the water slightly, if they fall short a little bit, they can overmatch you there. If they shoot high towards your turrets and superstructure, there's a lot of deck there that's overmatchable. Not ideal. But the armor is usable. You just got to be careful because, again, you get caught broadside, you die. You'll see that it does have a slight turtleback, but that turtleback is basically useless. It's there to make you feel like you have a turtleback and be a little bit overconfident, and then you're going to immediately regret life choices. Because as soon as you go broadside, your ginormous raised citadel is completely visible. And that little bit of a turtleback does not save you. I promise. You go broadside, get caught, you die. No ifs, ands, or buts. All right. So let's get to the overview. Long reach, above average main battery range. Hit them before they can hit you. Exactly. That's one of the good things about this build in particular is it allows you to have that standoff and you can survive a little bit better with the maneuverability that this thing has. Keeping that longer range is going to be beneficial to you because you can place those SAP rounds a little bit better into the deck and the superstructure. And then if somebody's dumb enough to give you a broadside, obviously you've got AP for that as well. Barrage can be equipped with a main battery reload booster. I already talked about that. SAP shells. Equipped or can be equipped with SAP shells that deal consistent damage, ricochet less, but can't start fires. BA Binah. This ship's design takes inspiration from Binah. It roams the deserts of Abydos, wreaking havoc wherever it goes. Binah serves decaggramation. It's not even shun. It's dacramaton. What the Stop. Get help. A mysterious AI. Yeah, I already hate you. Okay, well, if it's AI, then it's probably decagrammaton. There you go. That's the best I've got. Decagrammaton? Lord have mercy. Anyway, that causes trouble within Kivitos. Stop. Seriously. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. Just at this point, I feel like the developers are just trying to see how much I can struggle. This is bullshit. Okay. Anyway, overall, I like the design. It kind of reminds me of a Blue Eyes White Dragon from what in the world? It was like lagging really bad. Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! If you guys ever seen. Like, look at that. It's pretty clean. I'll be honest. It's pretty clean. And I like the shields down the side. Kind of reminds you of like a Roman phalanx a little bit, you know? But it's a good looking ship, and that contrast is pretty nice. And then of course it's got like the bronze in there as well, or copper inlays. I mean, it's pretty nice. If I do, I've said it before. I'll say it again. The Blue Archive designs are so far ahead of all the other collaboration designs, except maybe the Ninja Turtle designs. Those are pretty clean. But yeah, I mean, come on, man, look at that, right? That's pretty sexy. And with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on the Atlantic, and we are in the Binah. And like I said, I have not enjoyed my time in this ship, and it has nothing to do with the ship's fault. It's not the ship's fault. The ship is doing its job just fine. It's just that every single match you're probably going to be up against tier 7s, which means pretty much everything that you fight is going to overmatch your ship, and trying to survive in a ship that is pretty much guaranteed to be dev struck every time it goes broadside, is tough when you've got to fight everything. And then when everything overmatches you, it's really hard to like, out-trade people. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to showcase in this one that if the people that you're up against aren't exactly the brightest in the world, that you can absolutely out-trade people and do really, really good things. And the ship can perform adequately. Now, that being said, I also want to divert your eyes away from this Iowa. It's a beautiful ship, isn't it? It's so beautiful. What happens to this Iowa is nothing short of a travesty, and I refuse to ever admit it. At least he does one good thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, in true Spartan fashion, I've got a spawn on the side of the map where whoever's around me is going to be about as useful as, you know, a bug on a rug, right? But, yeah, we've got a destroyer coming over here to spot. We've got a big tanky battleship like the Iowa. And, yeah, we're going to have to do some good things here. Now, like I said, the biggest thing that I've had with this ship is that it just takes a beating. So keeping your distance early in the match is probably in your best interest, but also understanding that no matter the circumstance, that most players simply aren't that good at the game. And this is not me being an elitist or anything like that. It's just speaking facts. We all know what the average player does in this game, right? By this point, you should be pretty well aware. You guys have been watching my channel long enough. You guys are clearly not the people we're talking about. But the people that we're talking about are just, they don't understand basics about the game. Like the Kansas and Colorado, they don't understand that they overmatch me and where to aim. Now, you could say, well, Spartan, it's a new ship. Maybe they just don't know. Well, that's the thing. It's not really a new ship. Yes, it's technically a new ship, but it's just a Caracciolo, right? It's nothing really different when it comes to the armor or anything like that. But look at the shot. Blam! That is the SAP that we like to talk about. 17,000 damage in one salvo. Yeah. Given an opportunity, this SAP will slap. And that being said, saturation is also a thing, and the SAP has a tendency to do just that. So as you can see, this one not quite as good. We only hit 2 shells there, but yeah, damage saturation with SAP is notorious. One shot you might do a gajillion damage, and the next shot you just don't get much of anything. But you'll see that I do switch over to AP for the third shot here, and we've got 20,900 damage right now, and we're going to aim high, because we're not looking to citadel them at this range, we're just looking to get as many shells on target. Look at that freaking accuracy. That is all horizontal accuracy, very, very little dispersion, and we land 6 shells out of 8. And that takes us up to 32,000 damage. We just hit that man for over 12,000 damage. Yeah. And that's after he's already been saturated. So, again, understanding when and where to use SAP versus AP is a big deal. Now, this Prince Eugen, I don't understand what he was doing. Like, he was shooting at me this whole time. Not very well, but he was shooting at me, and he just got obliterated by the people around him. Rightfully so. Like, I don't get it, man. I don't know why. Some people will just go out of their way to target me specifically, and I don't know why. Like, it rarely works in their favor. Like, most of the time, like, if you're looking at me, somebody else is looking at you, right? So, just keeping that in mind. And especially when you're in the middle of a map like that, that's just silly. Plus, what is your HE from a Prince Eugen gonna do? Let's be real. Not much of anything. But as we start to close this, you can see the Synop out here. This is worst case scenario. I can really do nothing to a Synop with SAP. There's no real superstructure to farm. There's very little, like 25 mil armor to pin. The shells are just simply going to shatter and do no damage. But Kansas comes around the corner. I can farm his superstructure, but notice how the Iowa on our team has just been sitting broadside this whole time. Mans is getting chunked. He's got a Colorado shooting at him potentially. He's got the Kansas shooting at him. He's got the Synop moving into position to shoot at him. It's not a good look when you're just broadside the whole time, right? And shout out to the Kansas player. He does actually not just sit broadside. When he comes around the corner here, he is going to be turning to bow in. That being said, we're still in a good position. Iowa's not getting much damage, unfortunately. We've got AP loaded, so we're going to go high. And you can see 4 overpins. A nice little chip damage shot, not too bad. Now, I'm paying attention to the fact that the friendly battleship is about to get yeeted here. And it just never really happened that way because, for whatever reason, the Synop is going to do the unthinkable. All the Synop has to do is sit and bow in. There's nobody around to help us on this flank. But the Synop decides he wants to turn all the way around. And part of that is going to be our destroyer. Our destroyer is going to just throw his health away immediately. He's dropping torps on the Kansas. You can see we get a much better result that time on the Kansas superstructure. Kansas gets quite a bit of pins on us as well. But the Synop makes the decision to turn to the left side of the island. Again, I assume that this is because of the destroyer, because the destroyer is clearly spotted, because he's going to get dev struck. But as he's turning away, he's going full broadside to an Iowa at close range in a Russian battleship. That is never going to work out for you. Ever. But unfortunately, Iowa then moves beyond the line, gets obliterated, and so does my destroyer. And suddenly, I find myself in a 1v2 scenario. Or at least it would be 1v2 if it wasn't for the fact that their carrier's also going to show up, just to add insult to injury. So it's at this point that I have no choice, but I've got to limit who can shoot me. And right now, the Kansas can't shoot me, so I need to keep it that way. And so I got to take care of this Colorado ASAP. And speaking of ASAP, we're going to shoot SAP at him. And here come the planes. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to the planes and the AA, because we do actually shoot down some planes. But at the end of the day, it's still not the greatest in the world. And you can see the Saipan is going to Saipan you. But we get a good shot into the Colorado there. You can see we do load up the AP. We are ready with a reload booster as well. And I am going to use the reload booster against the Colorado to just guarantee that I get rid of him before I have to fight the Kansas. Now, some people will probably question that, but at the end of the day, my thought process was remove the threat now, and then that means that I can focus everything on the Kansas, right? I can't do anything about the carrier. But you can see we do Citadel the Colorado. Again, showcasing the AP on this thing is really good too. So don't sleep on it. If you get broadsides, use the AP. If you've got, you know, people going bow in or whatever, use some of that SAP. You can see carrier does actually come over here. I was giving our carrier player a little bit of a what for. I was like, dude, I need some help over here. I am like literally just going to have to fight the world. And their carrier's also coming over, and it's not ideal. But we overmatch a Colorado just like he overmatches us, except he doesn't have an extended belt, and you can see Kansas is starting to push around the corner. So I knew that was coming, so I needed to push forward, right? I need to use this island to my advantage for as long as possible to make it so that this Kansas can't just send me straight to the Shadow Realm. So we've got this island outcropping here that's going to protect us. You notice I'm not shooting either because I know it's fruitless. These shells are not going to go over that island. It's going to go straight into explosions. It's not ideal. So we got to wait. Now, as we start to get to a point where the Kansas is going to get around, we're going to hit the secondary button and allow the secondaries to start doing their thing. And then we're going to absolutely rip this Kansas apart and destroy one of his turrets while knocking out a second turret. And Saipan coming back for some more again. Like you can see, we are shooting down planes, but it's not a lot of planes, and it's not really that great. But we did take out one of the Kansas's guns, knocked out the second one. So as long as he stays bowing, you can see our carrier's also dropping him as well. Nice little chip damage there. So again, shout out to the carrier in this game for actually coming over and helping when I asked for it. I ask for help sometimes. It's pretty rare, but I do ask for help sometimes, and it's nice when it actually shows up. But you can see we're going to take a shot into the superstructure here. We get a little bit of chip damage, but it's really nothing, right? He tries to bow into us, which is great for us because that means he can only use one gun. But notice I've already switched back over to the SAP. I know that in this particular instance, oh God, Kansas is going for the full Monty broadside, and he's going to get it, and he's going to hit hard. But again, this is why we have heals, and so we're going to heal up as much as we can, try to out-trade him. And he's going to try to go back to being bow in, but again, this is where the SAP comes in handy. We're going to aim for that superstructure, and we are going to slap this man. Look at that, 14,598 damage, just murdering that man's superstructure. He gets some chip damage on us. Again, I'm out trading him. That's the main thing here, right? We don't want to give up too much too easily. If he shot through the back, he could absolutely hurt us, but he keeps shooting high for whatever reason, which is working in our favor. Now here he shoots too far forward because he fired while I was going to run aground. That is a pretty textbook error that a lot of players make. I still make it every once in a while too. Auto aim is always going to lead a moving target, so if somebody's going to run aground, you want to wait until they run aground and then shoot. Otherwise, auto aim will just be off ahead of them too far. So you'll notice that I took basically no damage there. We took one big hit from the Kansas, and we took everything that the Kansas had. And so this thing is absolutely capable of brawling if you angle well and don't just go broadside, and if the people that are against you don't understand where your weakness is. But the trading factor for the SAP, specifically in engagements like that, is huge. And that is something that I don't think can be understated. Like, you have such an advantage with that SAP in a brawl like that, because at the end of the day, if they go broadside, you have AP. If they try to stay bow in, you've got SAP. If you're going to be able to slap their superstructure for 14,000 damage, like, that's hard to come back from, especially when they're going to shoot your superstructure and maybe get 8,000 damage on a good salvo. Or if they get a great salvo, they might get, 15, but that's pretty rare. Especially late in the fight when you've already got saturation going on and stuff like that. But the SAP, man, it comes in clutch for that. And so at the end of the day, we ended up holding our side against pretty formidable odds with very little support. Thankfully, the Iowa on his way out decided to get rid of the Synop with one shot. Because if he hadn't done that, we don't win this side. Our team probably still wins the fight, but we wouldn't have won this side because I couldn't have taken on a Synop, the Colorado, and the Kansas. It was too many targets, and the Synop was in a good place to counter me. But at the end of the day, we did what we needed to do. I think I did a pretty good showcase of the ship, both the AP and the SAP, both viable. And like I said, at this low a tier, the SAP is pretty nasty. So it wouldn't surprise me if more often than not this thing is shooting SAP at targets, right? So don't be afraid to use it, but learn to use it, right? And learn when to be able to utilize that AP as well. But overall, I like the ship. I don't like the tier. And that goes for tier 6, tier 8, like they're always the same, right? When you get into those oddball, or I guess it'd be the even tiers, when you get into the even tiers, the problem is the next tier up is so much better that you have to play so much better than them in order to win those fights. Like, I had to outplay that Kansas really, really hard in order to win that fight. Whereas Kansas, he just needs 1 or 2 good shots and I'm dead, right? And now here we get a shot at the Saipan and we slap him as well for 4 penetrations, and we end up with 142,000 damage. And we managed to capture the base on the way through with a nice solo cap too. So overall, I like the ship. I don't like the tier. Would I recommend getting the ship? I mean, if you're looking for a tier 6 battleship, there are worse battleships out there. This thing's pretty solid. It's consistent. It does good damage every time I take it out there. Again, it's a bit squishy, but again, that's tier 6 battleships for you. They're very squishy. In the right hands, you can absolutely make them tanky in certain situations. But any sort of mid-long range engagements, you just want to avoid the shells if at all possible. And that's where the maneuverability of this thing comes in clutch too. Because again, it's not a very big battleship. I know, people think of battleships as being these giant battleships and stuff like that. But the Italians aren't really that big, most of them. And so on top of the fact that you sit low in the water, you're not a very big target, it's pretty easy to dodge a lot of shells. I mean, you kind of feel like an overgrown cruiser at times in Italian battleships. So use that maneuverability, use your standoff ability, and then when it dictates it or when you absolutely have to, brawl your heart out. Because if you make a mistake, you're done. Okay? Italian battleships can brawl, but just like the Russians, one mistake, you're done. You don't get to pass go. You don't get to collect $200. It ain't like the Americans where you take one citadel or two citadels and you just walk it off. The Italians and the Russians, if you get caught, you die. Just like the Yamato, just like all of the Italians and the Russians. Like, if you get caught broadside, you're just done, right? So, now that you guys know what the ship is about, I hope that you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.